There's a moment. Not when you decided to start a podcast. Not when you decided to start a YouTube channel. Before that, there's a moment. Quiet. Almost invisible. When the idea lands. When something in you says, I have something to say. People need to hear this. I can do this. And then, nothing. Not nothing like laziness, not nothing like I forgot. Nothing like standing at the edge of a diving board and realizing you've been standing there for 14 months. You know the water is fine. You've watched others jump. You've researched the depth. You just haven't jumped. This video is for the people who already know they want to do this. The coaches, the speakers, the authors, the experts, the ones who already have something to say, who've been saying it in rooms, on stages, in boardrooms, but somehow cannot get it onto a screen or into a microphone. Specifically, this is for people stuck between two doors, podcast or YouTube, audio only or video, with all the lights, lenses, and looking into the camera that comes with it. Both doors are open. Both are possible. Both are calling. And somehow, that is exactly why you haven't walked through either one of them. I want to introduce you to two people. You may recognize yourself in one of them, or maybe both of them, or maybe the space between them. Their names are Lulu and Chris. First up, the one who has every answer except her own. Lulu is an extraordinary woman, extraordinary at what she does. Business coach, relocated to Canada, building something new in a new city. When her clients call, she comes alive. When someone needs clarity, she is clarity. When a business is stuck, she unsticks it with precision, with warmth, with that particular energy that makes people say, she just gets it. Everyone reaches out to Lulu. Everyone. She is in every room she walks into, the one with the answers. So why has she been about to start for 2 years? Ask her, and she'll tell you it's the equipment. She's researched this thoroughly, by the way. Studied how Stephen Bartlett shoots his Diary of a CEO show. Measured the wall behind her desk twice. Priced out production teams. Made a list of what she needs. The list is very long. The list keeps growing. Some people say, I need better equipment. What they really mean is, I need a reason for it not to be perfect yet. Here's what Lulu hasn't said out loud. Not to her clients, not to her friends, not even quite to herself. If I show up and I'm not polished, what does that say about me? She's the coach. She's the one people model. She's the one who shows up with answers. So what happens if she shows up and she stumbles? What happens if the episode doesn't land right? What happens if the lighting is wrong, or the audio echoes slightly, or she loses her train of thought and has to start over? And someone sees that. Someone who pays her, someone who respects her, someone who has told their team, you should listen to Lulu. This isn't laziness. This is protection. There's also this. Lulu is used to being needed. She's used to having her phone ring, her inbox full, someone somewhere always reaching out. A podcast doesn't ring. A YouTube channel doesn't call you. You post, and then you wait. And the silence where the response should be is almost unbearable when you're someone who's used to being in demand and used to getting immediate feedback. Who does Lulu reach out to when everyone reaches out to Lulu? She doesn't know. And not knowing feels like a risk she cannot quantify, which means she cannot plan for it, which means she cannot be ready for it, which means she cannot start. Lulu chose video. Of course she did. She's camera ready. She's been camera ready for years. On client calls, on webinars, on stage, she shows up. she shows up. The ring light is in the corner, boxed, unopened, because the wall isn't quite right yet, because the backdrop needs sorting, because there's a sound issue she needs to fix first, because when she does it, she wants to do it properly. Because not yet is safer than not good enough. And every week she doesn't start, she tells someone she's going to start. And every week that person asks how it's going, and Lulu says soon. And the word soon is starting to taste like something she cannot swallow. Let's move on to a different character. The man who speaks to thousands but cannot speak to a camera. Chris is also an exemplary person, a motivational speaker, author, the kind of person people pay to stand in a room and shift something in the air. He's done this hundreds of times. He knows how to enter a room. He knows how to hold attention. He knows how to take a complicated idea and make it land in the chest of a stranger. He is, by any definition, a communicator. And he has 17 browser tabs open about microphones he hasn't bought yet. Ask Chris if he's starting a podcast, and he'll say nothing. Not yet. Not I'm working on it. Just a slight change of subject. A redirect. The skill of someone who knows how to manage a room being quietly deployed to manage this conversation. Because Chris has decided something. If he never says it out loud, it can never fail out loud. Some people say, I'm not sure I'm a podcast person. What they really mean is, what if I start and run out of things to say? Chris has books. He has talks. He has stories collected over years of standing in rooms and watching people change. He has content. And yet, the fear is not about quantity. The fear is about depletion. What if he gives it all away? Every story, every framework, every hard-won lesson. And then someone says, I listened to all your episodes. I don't need to hire you now. Ouch. What if that visibility is the thing that makes him invisible? There's also this. Chris compares himself to someone. You don't know who they are, but Chris does. Someone bold, someone who interviews big names, someone who feels effortless on camera, someone who Chris watches with something between admiration and dread. And Chris thinks, I'm not that person. He doesn't say it like a complaint. He says it like a fact, like a diagnosis. I'm just not that person. Which is interesting. Because Chris stands on stages, Chris moves audiences, Chris signs books and gets emails from strangers who say, you changed something in me. But to him, that's different. That is a room full of people. That is warmth and laughter and the energy of bodies. A camera is just a lens, a cold, unblinking, patient, waiting lens. And it does not laugh at his jokes. It does not nod when he makes a point. It does not shift in its seat when he says something true. It just waits. So Chris chose audio. Baby steps. An audio-only podcast first. No camera, no lighting, no looking at the lens, just his voice, which is actually remarkable, which has held rooms, which he trusts in a way he doesn't quite trust his face on a screen. And yet, Chris hasn't recorded a single episode because now there is a different set of walls. Audio has its own hurdles. He knows about Spotify, he knows about Apple Podcasts, he knows about RSS feeds and distribution platforms, and even episode artwork and show notes. And how does anyone actually find a podcast? You can post a YouTube video and the algorithm nudges it towards someone. You can post a reel and it finds its own way to a feed. But a podcast? A podcast requires someone to already know you exist, to search for you, to subscribe, to come back. It requires trust you haven't built yet, in a space where you aren't visible yet. Which brings you back to video. Which brings you back to the ring light in the corner. which is where we started. This was never really about the platform. Let's say something quietly. The choice between a podcast and a YouTube channel, it is real. There are real differences. There are real things to consider. We'll talk about those. But the paralysis? The paralysis was never really about the platform. Lulu doesn't need a better camera. She needs permission to still be coming while she is already teaching. Chris doesn't need a better microphone. He needs to understand that sharing his best ideas doesn't empty him, it proves him. Here's a translation. When Lulu says, I need the right setup first, what she really means is, I need to know I won't disappoint anyone. When Chris says, I'm not sure I'm a podcast person, what he means is, I need to know I won't run out, and I need to know I won't fail somewhere people can see it. And when both of them say, I just haven't had time, what they mean is, making time would make it real, and real things can really fail. This is what I want you to hear. The practical questions, formats, platforms, equipment, distribution, those are real and we'll address them. But they are downstream of the emotional questions. And the emotional questions for Lulu and for Chris, maybe even for you, is some version of, am I enough? Will I be found? What happens if I'm not? And no amount of equipment research answers that. No browser tab, no spec sheet, no measured wall answers that. Okay, let's talk about the actual platforms because the differences are real and they matter, and knowing them clearly might dissolve some of the paralysis or at least tell you which paralysis is yours. Audio podcasting gives you intimacy, a voice in someone's ear whilst they walk their dog, drive to work, cook dinner. It is one of the most intimate media formats that exists. No face required, no studio required, a decent microphone, a relatively quiet room, and something worth saying. That is genuinely all you need. The barrier to entry is low. The technical lift is manageable. But the distribution is the wall. A podcast doesn't surface itself. There's no algorithm that hands your show to a stranger who might like it. You have to be found. And to be found, you have to be known. And to be known, you have to show up somewhere people can already see you. Which means a podcast works best when it's paired with something visible, like a newsletter, a social presence, an existing community, or, dare I say, a video strategy. That isn't a reason not to start. It's a reason to start with a plan. Chris, this is your wall. Not your voice, not your ideas, not your capacity. Just distribution. And distribution is solvable. Video gives you discoverability. YouTube is a search engine, the second largest in the world. Someone searches, how to motivate my team. And if your video answers that question, they find you. Without knowing your name, without being in your community, without any prior relationship at all. That is extraordinary. That is also, for many people, terrifying. Because video asks for more. Not just your voice, your face, your space, your background, your lighting, the steadiness of your gaze as you look directly into a lens that gives you nothing back. Light, camera, microphone, recording environment, eye contact with a machine, and then editing, thumbnails, titles, SEO, posting, scheduling, consistency. Every one of those things is learnable. But every one of those things is also a place to get stuck. Lulu, you know this. You've gotten stuck in every single one of them. Not because you aren't capable, but because there are so many places to hide. And then there is a third option that sometimes gets lost in the either or. A video podcast. Recorded with a camera, release the audio on podcast platforms, release the video on YouTube. One conversation, two audiences, two distribution channels. The appeal is obvious. The challenge is equally obvious. It asks for everything video asks for, plus the consistency that audio demands. It is not the lazy option. It's not splitting the difference. It is a real commitment, and it can be a brilliant one, but it needs to be chosen intentionally, not as a way of avoiding the decision, which is what sometimes happens. I'll do both can be a strategy. I'll do both can also be a way of committing to neither. Know which one you are doing. Just start. It's the most well meaning and useless advice in content creation. That hurt a bit, right? I'll explain more. Everyone says it, and everyone who says it believes it. But just start assumes that the thing stopping you is inertia, that you just need a push, a nudge, a little momentum. It doesn't account for Lulu, who has been just starting for 2 years and cannot understand why she still hasn't. It doesn't account for Chris, who has something real to say and a voice that could carry it, but cannot figure out how to say it to a microphone instead of a room. These are not inertia problems. These are clarity problems. Clarity about which platform actually fits the way you think. Clarity about what your episodes will actually be about. Clarity about how often you actually show up, not the schedule you want to have, the schedule your life will actually support. Clarity about the fear underneath the practical questions. Because here's what I've watched happen again and again. Someone makes a decision, podcast, YouTube, whatever. They commit, they set a date, they buy the equipment, and then they sit down to record, and they don't know what to say first. The silence where the first sentence should be is so loud that they close the laptop and tell themselves they'll try again tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes next week. And next week becomes after the holidays. And after the holidays becomes, well, you know how this ends. What I've actually seen move people forward is not necessarily more research. It's not a better microphone. It's not finally finishing the studio setup. It's conversation. It's sitting with someone who knows this space, who has seen dozens of people start, struggle, succeed, and fail, and talking through what do I actually want to build? Who is it actually for? What is the version of this that fits my real life, not my ideal life? And what is the thing that I'm most afraid of? So we can name it instead of letting it run everything from the shadows. That conversation changes things. Not because it solves everything, because it makes the invisible visible. And visible things you can work with. What help actually looks like. So let me tell you what I've built. And more importantly, let me tell you how it maps onto what Lulu and Chris actually need. The clarity call. The clarity call is exactly what it sounds like. Before you record a single episode, before you buy a single piece of equipment, before you commit to a platform or schedule or a name, we talk. We talk about what you want to build, about who it's for, about which format, audio, video podcast, actually fits the way you think and work and live. Not in theory, not based on what works for someone with a team and a studio. For you, for your life, for your voice, your constraints, your fears. And yes, your fears are part of the conversation. Because Chris's fear that he'll run out of things to say, that is not a silly fear. That is a real thing worth examining. And examining it in conversation is how it loses its power. Because Lulu's fear that she'll look inconsistent, that the person who models confidence for her clients will be seen struggling, that deserves to be named, and named carefully, and reframed. The clarity call is where we do that work. Before anything is recorded, before anything is published, before the stakes feel real. It's where we figure out not just what you're making, but why it keeps not getting made. And if you're between the two platforms, genuinely unsure whether audio or video is right for you, that's exactly what the clarity call is for. We map your personality against each format. We look at your existing content, your books, your talks, your frameworks, and we figure out how to translate them. And if you know eventually you want to move to video, but you're not ready yet, we build a bridge. We plan the audio episodes in a way that makes the transition to video natural, not a reinvention. So when you're ready, you step out through a door that's already open, not a wall you have to break through. And then there's the video concierge service. This is for when you are ready to record and you do not want to do it alone. Because alone is where silence lives. Alone is where Chris stares at the camera and the camera stares back. Alone is where Lulu's energy drains the moment the call ends, and there is no one left to be energized by. The video concierge is someone in the room, virtually, present, listening. Someone who can tell you in real time, that landed, say more of that, or let's try that again, you were almost there. Someone who understands what good content feels like, not just sounds like, and who can hear the difference between you performing and you speaking. Because that difference, your audience will feel it, even if they can't name it. And after you record, the video concierge handles what comes next. Editing, distribution, scheduling, posting, the part that lives after the performance, the part that feels administrative and technical and deeply unsexy. But that is generally how people find you. You record, you finish, you step away, and someone else makes sure it reaches the people it was made for. Lulu, you don't need to figure out the algorithm. You need to be on the call, in the moment, coaching. Let someone else handle the rest. Chris, you don't need to become a distribution strategist. You need to be the voice. The rest is infrastructure. Infrastructure can be built. You cannot be replaced. And for Chris specifically, and for anyone choosing audio first, not because they've rolled out video, but because they need the smaller step first, here's something I want you to know. Choosing audio now does not close the video door. In fact, done right, it opens it wider. Because here's what happens when you work with a coach whilst you're recording your audio episodes. You get real feedback, real, specific, personalized feedback. That story in episode 3, that needs to go in your first episode. Or you're losing energy in the middle. Here's why. Or that's the episode people will share. More of that. You learn in real time what lands and what doesn't. Before the camera is on, before the stakes are visual, before anyone can see your face as you figure it out. And quietly, in that space, you build the confidence that the camera was stealing from you. You start to trust your voice, and your voice is the foundation of everything. The camera can come later. The camera will come later, but it will come easier because you will already know that what you're saying is worth seeing. Remember the diving board from the beginning? 14 months of standing there, watching others jump, knowing the water is fine. I want to say something about that. Those 14 months, those weren't failure. That is your nervous system telling you this matters. This is not small. I don't want to do this wrong. Which means underneath the paralysis, underneath the browser tabs and the unmeasured wall, and the 17 microphone options, there's care. There's someone who cares deeply about what they put out into the world. And that's not a flaw. That's the beginning of something good. Lulu has been protecting her clients by not showing up imperfectly. She was protecting the image they have of her, the one that makes them trust her, the one that keeps them coming back. That's not vanity, it's care. And Chris has been protecting his livelihood, protecting the value he spent years building, the stories, the frameworks, the hard-won lessons, by not giving them away until he was sure. That's not scarcity. That's stewardship. Both of them were trying to protect something real. The problem was never the instinct. The problem was that the protection became a prison. So here's what I want to leave you with. You do not need to be perfect to start. You need to be you to start. And you, the coach your clients already trust, the speaker who has moved rooms to silence, is more than enough. You don't need to sound like a show with a team. You need to sound like yourself. You don't need to be as bold as the person you admire. You just need to be honest as the person you already are. Lulu, your clients don't follow you because you're perfect. They follow you because you see them. The camera will let you see more of them and let more of them see you. Chris, your audience doesn't need your performance. They need your perspective. And you have been carrying it in rooms and books and keynotes. It belongs in the world. Not just later, not when everything is perfect. Now, in whatever form now takes for you. The mic has been waiting long enough. So have the people who need to hear you. And so have you. If something in this video landed, if you recognized yourself in Lulu or in Chris or in the space between them, the next step is simple. Book a clarity call, not to pitch you anything, to figure out together what the right move is for you. Which platform fits your life, which format fits your voice, and what has actually been in the way. The link is below. And if you are ready to go further, if you want someone in the room when you record, someone to handle the edit and the distribution so that the thing you make actually reaches the people it's for, Video Concierge service is there too. You've been doing this alone. You don't have to. Both links are below. Take whichever step feels true, and I'll see you there.